This is Part 2 Episode 167. Long Houchen had just completed his step up, and in addition to the short time he had taken in the life domain of Eastern's king, he felt as if he was in an unprecedented state of power. But the heart of eternity on his chest kept beating, as if recovering his spiritual energy. "Human, why did you enter my territory?" The voice of Eastern's king was still deafening, in contrast to his body. Long Houchen replied in a deep voice, "Eastern's king, for your own selfish desire, you bullied the weak, and committed the crime of clan extermination. I will make you pay for it today." As Long Houchen said that, he put his hands together above his head, and the aria of the goddess of light merged with blue rain, hibiscus of light. Dazzling rainbow lights rose up, and his light god domain rippled outward like a ripple of water. "Bullshit." Eastern's king cursed loudly, brandishing his huge axe and his huge hammer at the same time. Immediately, his green life domain transformed into countless plants in the air, attacking Long Houchen's light god domain. As soon as the green light entered the multicolored golden light, the result was exactly the same as before. That jade green color actually only increased the power of the multicolored golden light, and Long Houchen's light god domains might instantly increased, charging even faster. How did this happen? Eastern's king was shocked. Hurriedly withdrawing his domain, he leaped up and threw himself at Long Houchen. Domains that were completely restrained were extremely rare. Only when the two domains were in a state of mutual domination to the extreme would it appear. And Long Houchen's domain and the domain of Eastern's king weren't only limited to restraint, but also had the characteristics of a being born together. The domain of life of Eastern's king could almost be said to be the best fuel for Long Houchen's light god domain, but in the blink of an eye, the strength of Long Houchen's domain surpassed his control. Facing the attack of Eastern's king, Long Houchen didn't show the slightest fear, both hands grasping the sword of life and creation, and chopping it down on his head. It was Azura strike. Now, Azura strike was no longer the same as before, not only mixing the power of Long Houchen's domain with it, but also his comprehension of sword intent and sword spirit. A multicolored golden light fell from the sky like a waterfall, filling the entire mountain. Long Houchen's whole body emitted an unprecedented imposing aura. As soon as the green light surrounding Eastern's king came in contact with the multicolored golden light from Long Houchen's sword radiance, it was immediately weakened, and even the divine tool in his hand was greatly affected. However, the spiritual energy of Eastern's king was far above Long Houchen's. Letting out a loud shout, he brandished the weapons in his hands, and immediately, Long Houchen's sword intent was torn to shreds by a terrifying force. At the same time, he advanced forward, the axe in his right hand clashing against Long Houchen's sword of life and creation. Shock appeared on Long Houchen's face. He never thought that a person, or any kind of creature, could gain such terrifying power. He was certain that even the demon god emperor wouldn't have such strength in terms of strength. The only difference was that the sword of life and creation was contacted a little bit on the border, and in the next instant, Long Houchen's whole body flew out like an artillery shell, violently smashing against a distant wall. The stone walls in the belly of this mountain were extremely hard, but after Long Houchen's body crashed against it, green-colored debris flew in all directions, forming a huge crater. With Long Houchen's cultivation, at the third rank of the 9th step, in addition to suppressing his opponent's domain strength and sword intent, facing the power of Eastern's king, this was the result of this. His heart of eternity violently throbbed, but Long Houchen still couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. He felt as if his body was crushed by a huge rock, and his whole body was in pain, especially his arms, which now felt as if they weren't his own. After that instant of contact, the sword of life and creation had already completely split apart, turning back into two heavy swords. And on top of that, fine cracks appeared, as if they were going to break at any moment. Although Houchen's body was rapidly recovering, how could such a battle continue? No wonder even his pet had such powerful strength. No wonder his short stature made such a terrifying purr. His power was actually so terrifying. Proud voice of Eastern's king rang out, "Ha ha, I has the blood of the king titan. In terms of strength, even if God comes before me, he can only bow his head in submission." Just as he was feeling proud of himself, a dense multicolored golden light slowly floated out from the hole Long Houchen made. Compared to before, this seven-colored light was even more intense. And it was following a strange trajectory, with a slight hum. 7 colors circulated, and the light actually began to spin rapidly. In the next instant, Long Houchen reappeared in mid-air. Taking a deep breath, Long Houchen stared at Eastern's king with shining eyes. Since I have no way to resist against you in terms of strength, then, I can only use my domain. In the next instant, Long Houchen seemed to have turned into a sun, letting out a multicolored golden light, instantly illuminating every corner of the mountain. Eastern's king was also not spared. Although he possessed extremely terrifying power, he was completely suppressed by Long Houchen in terms of his attributes. A multicolored golden light covered his body, and Eastern's king immediately felt his spiritual energy being absorbed by that multicolored golden light at an astonishing speed. At this moment, he obviously could not use his domain. That would only speed up the rate at which his cultivation was being devoured by the light god domain. Only by defeating Long Houchen would he be able to get rid of the threat this light god domain posed to him. With a furious roar, the hammer in Eastern's king's right hand suddenly flew out, flying in the air like a huge green meteor, as it flew at Long Houchen. Long Houchen revealed an indifferent smile. In the contest of strength, even if I were 100 times better than what I am, I wouldn't be your match. However, your domain has been completely suppressed by me. No matter how strong your strength is, you won't be a domain warrior. As he spoke, the giant hammer flashed past him, but it was only a flash of light that shattered it. The giant hammer soared through the air, arcing through the air just as it was about to make contact with the walls of the cave, returning to Eastern's king's hand. Within the cave, Eastern's king could only see a rainbow-colored ray. The light god domain allowed him to see only 7 colors of the world. The cave seemed disappeared, and everything around him was just the colorful ray. Just as Long Houchen had said, without a confrontation between domains, ordinary powerhouses wouldn't have the slightest chance of fighting against a domain powerhouse of the same level. The domination of the domain alone made him powerless. Eastern's king was silent, his brown eyes shining. He kept a pair of huge weapons on either side of his body, sensing Long Houchen's location. But he soon found that it was useless. Because in Long Houchen's domain, the only thing he could sense was light. He couldn't detect even a trace of his soul aura. Long Houchen was currently hidden in the light god domain, healing his body at high speed while his brain was operating at high speed. If not for his domain of absolute restraint, even the strongest human expert in the Holy Demon Continent, Yang Haoyu the Divine Star Knight, wouldn't be a match for Eastern's king. His strength was too terrifying. Within his domain, the power of life was even purer. Fortunately, Long Houchen's light god domain had evolved, and after obtaining the ability to control the progress of life, he was able to achieve the effect of fusion of life energy. Otherwise, he would have no other choice but to escape. Under the influence of the light god domain, his spiritual energy was greatly reduced. No matter how strong his physical strength was, after losing the support of his spiritual energy, he could only be slowly ground to death by Long Houchen. Eastern's king's eyes were filled with unwillingness. This battle had been too stifling. He had never thought that there would be someone with a domain that could restrain his domain so much. One must know that his life domain had a powerful ability to control the life force of all animals and plants. Once it was covered by his domain, the life force of the enemy would be rapidly drained. No one had ever been a threat to Eastern's king. However, contrary to his expectations, he was in big trouble today. In the face of the light god domain that Long Houchen had evolved into, it was like a firewood meeting fire. And then his firewood would have to be lit. With a roar at the sky, Eastern's king's life force erupted like a geyser. The hidden life realm bloomed once again. Although he was only drinking poison to quench his thirst, this was the only way for him to discover Long Houchen's position through the collision of domains. In a flash, Eastern's king's speed reached its peak, while at the same time, the weapons in his hands flew out, covering the direction Long Houchen was in. These two divine artifacts rapidly pounced at Long Houchen, but just as they were about to come into contact, they clashed against each other, letting out an extremely terrifying explosion. A thick layer of emerald lightning spread out in all directions, covering an area of at least 300 square meters. Ha ha, let's see where you can run now. Being struck by my unparalleled thunder, even if your domain restrains me, you will fall into a state of paralysis and shock. At this point, Eastern's king realized that something was wrong. This was because he discovered that Long Houchen's figure had disappeared, and the light god domain was speeding up its assimilation into his domain of life. No, that's impossible. Eastern's king caught the two flying divine artifacts with a look of disbelief. Long Houchen's voice came from all directions. There's nothing impossible about this. For I am not merely the domination of the realm over you and have restrained you. My soul force is also more powerful than yours. Therefore, even if my domain collides with yours, I can suppress your perception and prevent you from finding out where the real me is. Although he said that, Long Houchen was in fact shocked. The collision between those two divine artifacts was simply too terrifying. If he was in that range, he wouldn't die. At the very least, he would be completely restricted, or even sealed. Eastern's king could turn the tide and win the battle. The face of Eastern's king was filled with unwillingness, but he had no choice but to quickly retract his life realm. If he didn't retract it now, the consumption of his spiritual energy would only increase. And Long Houchen's domains might kept increasing, even increasing the speed at which his spiritual energy was being absorbed. Believe it or not, I'll use all of Eastern's life force to blow up your domain. Eastern's king raised the divine artifact in his hands and threatened. Long Houchen showed a smile. You can try. Don't you think that if you really did that, you'd be melted first before my domain could explode? Eastern's king was instantly speechless. He was truly unwilling. He knew that his opponent's strength was inferior to his, but he was still unable to defeat his opponent. This sort of feeling was definite, not comfortable. Of course, he could also escape through the protection of the life realm. But as the king of Eastern, if he gave up his own territory and fled, how could he continue to rule Eastern? Just as the king was in a rage, the multicolored light around him slowly retreated, and Long Houchen's body appeared. After a period of recovery, the injuries caused by the blast had already recovered. And because he absorbed a large amount of life force to replenish his domain, not only did his previous use of the light god domain not consume any of Long Houchen's spiritual energy, it even nourished his own body, restoring most of his spiritual energy. The king's face was extremely ugly. Of course, only he could feel his expression, and all Long Houchen could see was that big beard. But he could still see the extreme reluctance in the eyes of Eastern's king. Human, are you here to humiliate me? Eastern's king growled. Facing Long Houchen, he was clearly in an invincible position. Although he recovered his domain, Eastern's king knew that he didn't have the ability to instantly kill his opponent. At the same time, he couldn't do that either. It was just like how he could also feel that Long Houchen wouldn't kill him. Long Houchen shook his head. Of course not. I was invited to deal with you. She told me that you killed all her people for her treasures and kidnapped her family. I came here to help her rescue her family. Bullshit. I am the spokesman of the Lord of Nature in the world, the embodiment of nature and the will to live. How could I do such a thing? Although you have the heart of light and the glory of supreme light, you cannot insult me. I am the child of the Lord of Nature. Eastern's king was enraged, and the terrifying divine artifacts in his hands began to clap against each other. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and asked urgently, "Who is this person that you were talking about just now? I want to know who dares to slander the spokesman of the Lord of Nature, the great Eastern's king." Just as Long Houchen was about to open his mouth, the whole cavern shook violently, and immediately, an indescribable great power spread out from the cavern that Cece had just entered. It was also the power of life, but this power wasn't the power to create life, it was the power to destroy life. When Eastern's king sensed the presence of this aura, he immediately turned pale with fright. However, he didn't take any action, as if he was extremely afraid of this destructive power of life, and rapidly retreated to the side, even dodging behind Long Houchen. At that very moment, a white figure drilled out from the cave. As soon as she appeared, the power to destroy life immediately burst out. Terrifying fluctuations of spiritual energy pressed Long Houchen, and Eastern's king against the distant stone walls at the same time. However, they quickly adapted to this force and immediately flew back into the air. Eastern's king looked at Long Houchen with both alarm and anger. You actually let someone sneak into the forbidden area and steal the seeds of the tree of destruction. Do you know that this would upset the balance of the entire Eastern world, and would even make all living things in the Eastern world into nothingness? Naturally, the white figure that flashed out was Cece. At this moment, in her right hand was a very strange stone. The stone looked strange, half gold, half silver. It emitted a faint golden and silver glow. At the place where the two colors intersected, a small sapling appeared. The sapling was a light purple color with faint purple spots. And the immense destructive power Long Houchen felt before was actually emitted from this little sapling. Undoubtedly, this was the seed of the tree of destruction that Eastern's king had spoken of. Cece, did you save your family? Long Houchen asked. Cece raised her head to look at Long Houchen and King Eastern, startled, and asked back, why didn't you lead him away? Long Houchen replied, my domain just happened to restrain his, so I defeated him, so naturally there's no need to draw him away. You haven't answered my question. Cece smiled sweetly and said, it's all right, it's not important anymore. Brother Long, thank you for helping me obtain the seed of the tree of destruction. From now on, I am the ruler of this Eastern world. I will grow with the growth of the tree of destruction, until I turn this place into my god-slaughtering domain. I didn't expect you to be so powerful that even King Eastern could defeat you. However, since you defeated him, why didn't you kill him along the way? This is good as well. I'll do it myself then. When King Eastern saw Cece, he immediately became enraged. It's you. So it's you. Queen of the Moon, what are you planning to do? The last time you stole the divine stone of sun and moon was because of the tree of destruction seed. Do you want to destroy Eastern? Hearing name of the Queen of the Moon, Long Houchen was startled, and couldn't help but think of Queen of the Moon, who was far away in the demon city. After so many years, he didn't know how she was doing. However, the demon god emperor had said that he wouldn't harm her. Was she all right now? Cece sneered, Shorty, if you weren't so anxious to force us, the Moon clan, to lose our chance of survival, why would I take such a risk? The moment I planted Lord Tree of Destruction on the divine stone of sun and moon, I changed my faith. King Eastern, I may not be able to kill you today. However, once Lord Tree of Destruction grows up, I will be the first to find you. Long Houchen wrinkled his brows, calmly looking at Cece. Cece, this doesn't seem to be the same as what you said. It seems that you didn't come here to save your family. Cece looked at Long Houchen with a complex look, lightly sighing, Brother Long, I'm sorry, I lied to you. But I had to. You're too kind and trusting. But it's worth it for me to use you. You are so handsome, but you carry the inheritance of light. Don't worry, when I've completely merged with the Tree of Destruction, I'll definitely find you the best tomb. Of course, if you give up your faith in the light and follow me through the mysteries of the dark, I will not only not kill you, but I will even marry you and become your wife. After all, an outstanding human being like you is just too rare. As she spoke, Cece's body began to change. Her ears became sharp, and her black hair slowly floated in the air. It seemed as if a black wave was spreading out from her back. 3 pairs of transparent, but faintly glowing black wings unfurled. Her impeccable appearance was filled with a mysterious allure. Her aura also increased dramatically. Although she was not as powerful as King Eastern, she was at least a domain-level expert. Cece's voice was no longer gentle, but filled with pride. Let me introduce you again. I am the Master of Darkness and Water, Queen of the Moon Knight of Eastern. The leader of the Night Elves. My people have been forced by you humans and elves to gradually go extinct. If I don't act now, my tribe will really be exterminated. So what I said to you before was not all a lie. As for my parents and relatives, they don't exist. As the Queen of the Moon, I am the ruler of the darkness. I don't need any blood relatives at all. Hearing her words, Long Hao Chen watched her silently, but the expression on his face didn't have much of a change. King Easton let out a loud shout, and the two divine artifacts in his hands clashed against each other, causing the divine life domain to immediately release a dark green luster. Queen of the Moon, do you think you can still leave today? Queen of the Moon Cece showed a smile. Can't I leave? If it was before, perhaps you would still have a chance to keep me here. But now, as she said that, she slowly raised the Tree of Destruction in his hand, letting out a dense dark aura that rapidly followed the cold chill into the divine stone of sun and moon. Immediately, a terrifying pressure that was several times stronger than before burst out, causing King Easton's life realm to rapidly shrink back. The Tree of Destruction is the companion of the Tree of Eternity, and the Tree of Eternity is the home of the Lord of Nature. Although you are the spokesperson for the Lord of Nature, how can you contend with the Tree of Destruction? Even if the Tree of Destruction has only just sprouted, your power isn't enough to stop me from leaving. With a flash, Long Hao Chen stood in front of Easton's king, and a multicolored golden light instantly bloomed, protecting the life realm of Easton's king. The Tree of Destruction's destructive life force was not as powerful in his light god domain as it was in his life realm. At least, Long Hao Chen didn't retreat. The two domains clashed with each other, producing a slight sound. Cece's face revealed a trace of resentment. Sir Long, are you going against me? Long Hao Chen wrinkled his brows. It seems that I was wrong. Cece giggled and said, what's the point of knowing now? A good person like you will always be at a disadvantage. Consider my proposal. Follow the darkness, and I will keep you by my side forever. Below one person, above all others. Long Hao Chen lightly shook his head. Although I was wrong, it's not too far off. A good man is not necessarily a fool. It's not too late to make up for my mistake. Huh? Cece looked at Long Hao Chen with some doubt, but the spiritual energy infused into the Tree of Destruction's sapling was even more intense. Long Hao Chen raised his hand, pointing at this Queen of the Moon. A bizarre multicolored golden light suddenly burst out from her body. The soft golden light seemed to have no destructive power, but the process of the multicolored light spreading out made Cece shriek loudly. Her dark spiritual energy was instantly blocked. Soon after, her body began to show signs of shrinking. You put a curse on me. You bastard. Cece's voice became more and more shrill and immature. In just a moment, her body shrank to the size of a 3 or 4-year-old girl. Even the divine stone of sun and moon needed both hands to hold it. It is not just vitality that is declining, but also strength. Even though Cece's mind was still the same as before, her powerful domain-level cultivation was completely gone. Naturally, he could no longer control the destructive power of life. So you're actually this despicable. You actually planted a seal in my body. Cece stared at Long Hao Chen with her childlike voice. It had to be said that not only was she originally a beauty, but after she became a little girl, she was also a beauty, and she was even more adorable. The 6 wings on her back had also become small and delicate, and she looked rather playful. Long Hao Chen shook his head. I am not the despicable one. Because I saw through your lies, so I left a backup. If Easton's king is truly an evil man as you say, then I will do my best to help you. Unfortunately, you lied to me. It's useless. Even the power of this Tree of Destruction can't remove my seal. That's right, I definitely don't have the same level of power as the Tree of Eternity that you speak of. But one thing I can be sure of is that my light is at least on the same level as the Tree of Eternity. Cece murmured, You're lying, you're lying. You didn't see my scheme at all. It is because you despicably wanted to obtain the treasures on my body that you cursed me. Long Hao Chen gave her an indifferent smile. If others don't know about it, I won't do it. Since that's the case, I'll make you accept it wholeheartedly. First of all, you thanked me before we went into action for the flaw in your speech. Even dead, the soul goes to heaven, not to return to the embrace of the Lord of Nature. I suspected you then. Because, as you said before, in Eastern, both humans and elves are subjects of the Lord of Nature. And then, before we went looking for lilac intoxicating, you looked at my wings with a hint of envy in your eyes. My perception is very high. Perhaps you think that your concealment is flawless, but I still managed to discover it. It's too easy to get lilac intoxicating. Since it's holy medicine, why don't you plant it in the tribe's cave? And you said then, what you left there was only a little trick. However, according to my spiritual detection, there is an attacking magic in the area of your barrier. That magic's strength is comparable to a forbidden spell. These, though they arouse my suspicions, are not the most important. What really made me completely certain in my heart was your strength concealment. When we were close to Eastern Hill, you landed on the ground and walked forward, and I felt the soul ripple of Eastern's king. Although he was about to enter his afternoon nap, his powerful senses encompassed a large area. It was only because of the fluctuations of the natural elements in the air that he missed a few things. And as we move forward, you direct me to change direction, in effect avoiding the king's perception. In other words, your perception is absolutely not inferior to mine. With such a perception, how could you possibly be as simple as a mage of the 8th step? Furthermore, according to your perception, you obviously don't trust in my domain's ability to conceal myself. In addition to these discoveries, there is my understanding of Eastern's world. I can tell you frankly that I didn't belong to this world, but I have the same light as this world. My soul power is far above yours, even above Eastern's king's. When you take the lilac intoxicating and pour them out, I use my own soul power to communicate with the soul of the world that belongs to nature. I felt their faith as I communicated with them through a tree, and I felt their feelings for Eastern's king. I asked them with my soul. But none of the creatures that answered my question bore any hostility to Eastern's king. At that point, I was sure of my judgment. But I came with you, because I wanted to figure out what your purpose was. If I had exposed you, I would have left a time bomb in Eastern, no doubt, and I would have been curious about your purpose. So I came with you. Fortunately, you didn't lie about the lilac intoxicating. That would only make people drunk without causing any harm. Otherwise, I would have already made my move. At this point, Long Houchen revealed a smile, looking even more enchanting with his handsome face. The most intelligent thing about you is that your words are 90% true, and only 10% of them are false. Add to that the sincerity in your eyes and your own beauty, and it's really easy to fall for. However, a wise man must have one mistake, not to mention that you have exposed so many flaws. Before you entered that cave, my palm was indeed a boost to you. But what you said had to be true. In order to gain my trust, you didn't resist my power. If my guess is correct, after entering the cave, you immediately used your water-attributed power to guide the power of light out of my body, right? Unfortunately, you can't lead my domain out. In terms of cultivation, you aren't any weaker than me. Maybe even stronger than me. However, after my domain skill invades your body and takes root in it, even with your cultivation level, you will not be able to offset it. The name of my field technique is control of the process of life. Maybe I can't really turn you back into a cute young girl like what I did on that gorilla, but I can seal you for at least an hour without a problem. Right? Queen of the Moon. Queen of the Moon was unwilling to accept this, but you still fought against Eastern's king. Aren't you afraid he'll kill you? What if you can't beat him? How can you be so sure of yourself? Long Houchen replied, that's right. I don't know whether I can defeat Eastern's king or not. But I was sure he wouldn't kill me. You can't understand it. That's because you don't understand enough about light and nature. What is the source of life? Light and water. It takes light and water to give birth to nature. I fought with Eastern's king so that I could take a step closer to confirm his abilities. As I had expected, Eastern's king had the purest powers of nature and the life domain. Then how could a pure breath of life be possessed by an evil person? At the same time, I also revealed my domain to Eastern's king. Although this was my first time meeting him, judging only by our attributes, it made it impossible for us to become real enemies. Naturally, they wouldn't kill each other in battle. I had already made such a judgment long before I came here. What else is there to be afraid of? Long Houchen's words were neither slow nor fast, and had a reasonable basis. His voice was very calm, but in the ears of Queen of the Moon, Sisi, it was as loud as thunder. You. Without the influence of the destructive power of life, Eastern's king came to Long Houchen's side, giving him a glance. Intelligent humans are really terrifying. Fortunately, you didn't make a big mistake. Long Houchen made an inviting gesture. Since this tree of destruction is in your custody, please take it back. At this moment, Sisi no longer had any power to resist. Even though she was holding up the tree sapling, she was unable to borrow that terrifying power. However, Eastern's king didn't immediately take back the tree of destruction. Instead, he frowned. Sisi sneered, "You are really smart. But do you think this will stop the tree of destruction from growing? You can kill me. But in the near future, when Lord Tree of Destruction grows up, the Eastern world will sooner or later become its nourishment. By then, you will all die." Long Houchen wrinkled his brows. "Isn't it just a little sapling? Can't I destroy it now?" Sisi laughed. Despite her young age, she was laughing hysterically. What a joke, what a joke. It seems that you really do not belong in Eastern world. The Tree of Destruction and the Tree of Eternity were both eternal and indestructible. After its seed sprouted from the divine stone of sun and moon, it would never be destroyed. If you don't believe me, you can let the dwarf beside you try. Ask him if he can destroy this Tree of Destruction. Part 2 end here.